In this video, we will continue on the beginner's guide to Gosu and Ruby language. If this is the first video, you will need to go to first video you're following. You'll need to go to github.com programming rainbow beginner's guide to Gosu and Ruby. You'll need to clone that repository. And this is the fourth video, so we'll be working with the code that we ended off with in the third video. So you'll need to grab the main.rb file from the video 3 folder and copy it to the top level directory so that we can work with it. Let me just show you where we left off. We have a text, a true type font text that is bouncing around the screen. We have a background image drawn and we can change the color behind the background image. We have a title on the screen and we do not have a window icon because we can't. So in this video, we will be making a player sprite and we will be controlling that, and we will be using the keyboard input to do that, but we'll be doing it in a slightly different way than we have been getting keyboard input so far. Okay, so the first thing we can do is just load the player sprite. There's nothing new happening here with this, and I'll just show you the image. It's this Ruby logo.png. So if we go right up here to the top, and we could just grab where we're loading the background image, because it's the exact same method, the class constructor that we've already used. So I'm going to paste it here, and we'll call this Sprite. And the image that we are using is the Ruby logo. Okay, Ruby logo. And the way that we display the Ruby logo is going to be exactly the way that we display the background and the text. So I'm just going to put it here just to make sure it's working. Sprite.draw, and we'll put it at 0, 0. Well, the text is moving. Yeah, we'll just put it 0, 0. Text also starts at 0, 0, but this will be drawn on top of everything else because it's the last thing on the list drawn here. Okay, so let's make sure that that loaded and is being displayed. Okay, now we have the Ruby logo right up here in the top left-hand corner. Okay, so now what we need to do is control it. And the way that we were getting input before was with this button down ID. So this button down is it's a keyboard button event. So this is a kind of thing where it's letting us know if an event has happened where we've pressed a key. So this keyboard event is something that happens one time. We're triggering an event that happened once. And we don't want this, we don't want to use this style if we're moving an object around the screen, because it'll just move once. The way that we move stuff around the screen, we don't want it to move one time, or to move one time and then pause for a second and then start moving in a repeated fashion, kind of a jerky fashion. We want it to move in a smooth fashion. So we don't want to see if there is a keyboard event that happened. We just want to see the state of the keyboard. Is it in a down state for this frame so I can update the movement of the image for this frame? So what we're going to use is a different function that we have been using. We're using something called button down, and let me just, so there's button down with it, which is kind of an event. This is a different one. This has a question mark after it. Let's see if we can get both versions. Okay, let's check the difference between the two. Is it not defined here? Sorry. Let's look at the this is just a function. This is probably on window. Yeah. So this is a method of the window class where it's giving us that keyboard event, whereas the other one is just, this one is just giving us the state. So this is a class method. But it's for Gosu. It's not specifically for the window. And what it is doing is it's not telling us whether an event has happened. It's telling us what's the state of the key that we're looking for. What's the specific state of it? Is it in the down state? We don't, because if you think about it this way, if you've pressed a button it might take you, the time it takes you to press the button, 10 frames may have gone by. So if this is something like in a game where you're slashing a sword, you don't want the sword to start slashing and then restart over and over again 10 times until you lift your finger off the button. You want it to happen just one time. But if you're moving, you want that movement to update every single time that the frame comes by and is checking if your key is in the down state. So this is checking, is it in a down state? And the ID that we put in here is the same. It's going to be the same way that we've been putting. It's a integer, and that is going to be the same as these right here. And there's a 0 to 9 and an A to Z. So we're going to be using that method. So it looks slightly different. So this is one that we are overriding, a method that's already built into Windows that we're overriding. This other one is not. It's checking the state of the keyboard. So I'm going to make a new method here, just like we did with the update text, called update sprite. And I'm going to use this other style. So we're going to say if, well, let's put the end on this. So if Gosu, so this is already looking different than the other method. Button down with a question mark. Usually in Ruby, if you see a method that has a question mark at the end of it, it's returning a Boolean, like true or false. So now we want to check if there is we want to check the actual key. You know, we want a Boolean back from the actual key. So we're going to say the left key. So that would be Gosu keyboard left. Okay, so if the keyboard is if the left key is down in the frame that this is being checked in, we want to move the sprite to in the left direction. So we haven't made the variables yet. Let's make a couple variables for the sprite. We'll do a sprite x and a y and a velocity. And we don't need the x velocity and y velocity, we just need a velocity. And this velocity is going to be slightly faster than the text. I'm going to put it at 5. So 5 will be 60 times a second. That will be 300 pixels per second that we're getting movement out of this sprite. So I want the sprite x and I'm going to increment it by, well, this one is going to be a decrement actually because we're moving left. I'm going to decrement it by the velocity. Okay. So let's do the right one and then we'll check them. We'll test it. So I'm just going to copy this code that we just made for the left one. And we'll change this to right here, and then it'll be an increment. So this needs to be a plus because it's an increment. Okay, let's just check that and make sure that that is working. I don't think yeah, you know what, we're not using our variables when we draw it. And also we're not calling this update yet. So we have two problems here. One is we have just static zeros here, and we need it to be the instance variables for this. Sprite x and sprite y. So that was the first problem. The second problem is we're not actually updating. We're not calling that method. We have update sprite. Now we hopefully should get some movement. So that's the left arrow key, and this is the right arrow key. And if I press both of them, I don't move. That's just the way I want it to go. I want it to move, I want it to move, and if I press both, I want it to not move. Okay, so we could do an or. Let's do a I don't know if you can put multiples in the when we're checking it. No, we're going to be doing it one at a time. So I'm just going to yank this. I'm kind of adding something extra that's not been in the... So we can say left or A. Let me just test that real quick. Okay. That's A button. That's the right arrow, and then the A button. Okay, so I'm going to do the same with the other side. I'm basically implementing the arrow keys over on the ASDW keys. Okay, so this one is going to be D for right. Okay, and now I'm going to copy the whole thing, and we'll do it with the Y as well, with the up and down. So I'm just going to yank that, and then... So this one's going to be up, and it's going to be up in W. And W. And this is going to be decrementing Y. And this will be down and S. And this will be incrementing Y. Okay, let's give that a go. So I'm just using the ASWD keys now. There's A, there's S, there's W. Okay, and if I press down and S at the same time, okay. If I press S and up at the same time, it doesn't move. Perfect. So these keys can be used individually and or in combination. I can go diagonal, and they do exactly what they're meant to do. Now, it does go faster if you go diagonal because I'm moving X and Y both by 5. So that's kind of like 7.5, somewhere, around 7.5 in a diagonal direction. So we're not normalizing for this game. This is just simple movement, but that allows you to move. And I'm not checking the bounds. I'm going to let you go right off the screen. You could check bounds and not allow it to move, but for this one, we're just moving it around. And we can still change the color. Okay, let's make sure we've set the title up here to moving player sprite. Okay. Let's walk through what we've done here. So we have the player sprite here. We have loading of a new image, and this is exactly the same way that we loaded the background image. Nothing new is here. We have a variable for the X and the Y coordinates and a velocity, just like what we did in the other video. Okay. We are not using this method to move it. We're not using the keyboard event, but we're using the keyboard state. So when we get down here to our update sprite, we're actually checking a key to see if the key is just in the down state. Not if a key action has occurred, but if it's just down. If it's down for this frame, that's all we want to know. And we're using the OR to check, is this one or this one down? Either one of these are down, we're going to move it. And because each of these are in their own if statement, that means this one can decrement, and if the opposite is being pressed, this will increment it, and you'll end up exactly where you started. You won't move because both of them are being pressed at the same time. If we used an if else, then one of them would override. So that allows you to, like I said, have opposite movement, opposite keys being pressed, and then it doesn't move the way that you think it should work. And I think that's about it for this one. So that explains everything that's happened here. And we did add the update sprite into the update method. That, remember, these are core methods that we're overriding from the window class. The button down, the update, and the draw. These are also the initialize. That's just there. But we're overriding these methods. Whereas this one here, we're not overriding it. This is a Gosu method that is returning a Boolean whether it's down or not. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that one. That's about it for this video, and thank you again for watching. Bye.